over here.
And we were just having an off-air conversation about city elections coming up on November 3rd. That's Election Day 2015, and of course, since it's not connected with Election Day 2016, which is a general election, it may not get necessarily the attention from a lot of people, but it definitely is still taking place, and elections are still important in this country, even if they're at the local level. 7 minutes after 9 o'clock, 54. Greg Lanting joining us this morning from the Twin Falls City Council, and welcome back to the program.
Oh, glad to be here, Bill.
Right off the top, you're not one of those people running for re-election this year, so this is
No.
somewhat of a relaxed autumn for you.
Yes, they stagger them so you have four of the seats are up one election cycle, and then next election cycle the other three are up for election. So I'm in one of the three. Don Hall and oh shoot, I'm having a brain cramp here. Suzanne Hawkins are on that sort of cycle, so we're not up this particular time. The other four seats are up this time around, and if I can get my iPad to work here, I was going to go who the candidates were. Seat number 2 is the one that's currently held by Jim Munn. He has chosen not to run again, and so there are 3 people who have filed to run for seat number 2. And even though we run for different seats, everybody runs at large, so everybody in the city votes for each of the seats. Nikki Boyd, a local realtor, Wayne Bourne, a local businessman, has a siding company, and then John Calparis, who I don't know personally, and maybe you do, is the third person in that seat. Sean Barricker holds seat number 3, and no one chose to run against him, so he's actually running unopposed this time around. Seat 4 is the one that's currently held by Chris Talkington. He is running again, so he will be the incumbent. Larry Hauser, who I think I know who it is, but I don't say anything if I don't maybe identifying the wrong person. Then Neil Christensen, who's a local businessman, is the third person running for that seat. And then seat number 7, which Rebecca Mills-Soika is the incumbent, and she is running again, and she is being opposed by Ruth Pierce, who is a local CPA, has an office downtown. And then somebody I do not know, Bethany Rasmussen, is the third person in that particular race. So 9 candidates running for 4 seats, so fairly good turnout of candidates. You'd like to see a few more. I would like just to encourage people to get out and vote on November 3rd. I mean, this city government is the closest one to you, the one that you have the easiest contact to reach out to. We're one of 7 people, so if you convince us of an issue, we have a much higher chance that we can actually affect some change for you. Whereas, if you're a legislator, they're one of 70 if they're in the House and 35 in the Senate, and your congressman, of course, one of 435 from a small state, and those kind of things. So we're the people that if you contact us, we have a chance that we might be able to make the change that you're looking for, because we're one of 7. And so we're the closest to the people, and I think that helps us to be effective if we hear from people and we get a lot of people out voting to select the best people to be in office.
And it's the least I think political in the sense that if someone has a need, let's say I remember when I was a kid, we had a tree growing outside the house and it broke the sidewalk. The root system had spread out and the sidewalk cracked, and one of the blocks popped up, and of course it, especially in winter, was going to be difficult. So you have to go to your local government. Somebody in local government can help you out with that. You can maybe saw that out and replace that block. There were an issue like that. You would not go to your U.S. Senator's office to get that resolved. Unless Chuck Schumer, I guess, was your U.S. Senator or somebody like that who works on those tiny little pothole issues. But you would not go. You would go to somebody in local government, and it really doesn't have anything to do with a political party. It's just your local representative is the person who addresses that.
Right.
Your city representative.
Right, and by Idaho law, the city races are nonpartisan. In other words, we can identify with the party if we choose to, but it's not on the ballot. In other words, it doesn't say Republican, it doesn't say Democrat, it doesn't say Independent. We're typically running on the issues. I remember someone, and I'll give him credit for it, even though he's running. Chris Talkington once said, I remember in a quote in the newspaper, that there are no conservative sewers or liberal water systems or Republican or Democrat or whatever you want to say. They're just problems. People flush the toilet. They want it to go away. When they turn on the faucet, they want water to be there, and they want it to be clean, and they want it to be safe. And so most of those issues are a nonpartisan issue. We certainly have things come up every once in a while that even for our things that would be a liberal or conservative issue, but not very many. Most everything is just trying to get the job done for people because cities are a service. They provide a service to people, and that's their purpose.
I was going to say those old broadcasters are very eloquent, aren't they?
Yes.
You got two of them on the council.
Right. Hmm.
You want to talk about overweighting the situation there? I don't know. You don't really have that many lawyers compared to broadcasters.
No, that's true. We actually have two former broadcasters and no former lawyers. So,
Yeah, that's just quite a
and, and,
change in
and that,
government too.
and
Another
to be
reason
honest
it's
with you,
different.
I would state that that's a good thing.
Yes. Well, pointing out some of the things about elections and what happens in this situation, a lot of people who may be newcomers to Twin Falls, and we do see some growth here.
Certainly.
A lot of people come here and they don't necessarily know the history. They don't know who the candidates are. What would you recommend they do if they're trying to get up to speed with all of this?
Well, I'm hoping several of my elections there have been debates and even televised debates and things that I would suggest to make sure you watch those and see how people answer their questions and see what their purpose in being there is. I've always been against, no matter what level it is, school board, city council on up. If they're a one issue candidate, then they're probably not the person you want.
Mhm.
You're looking for somebody that's looking at the broad spectrum of things and is hoping to just to make the city a better place. That's the reason I ran. I ran originally to I wanted to make the city a better place to live in, and hopefully that's what I've been able to do. So I would look at those issues. I think the Times News will probably at some point will at least have at least snippets of how people react to a particular questions that may be of interest to people. So certainly check the media, and then in any of the outlets, the radio. Maybe that's a series you could have. You could pick one or two of these races and have all three candidates on. That keeps it fair. If you have all
Sure.
three, maybe not the same day, but 3 days in a row or something along that line, so people can be informed about what things. And then, and to be honest with you, it's a little bit the purpose of the signs. If your neighbor has somebody's sign in their yard, go ask them why they have their sign in your yard. You maybe find out why you might be for them or against them for that same thing. Because a lot of times they if they know them a little better, they can probably tell you a little more about a candidate. And so that's one of the uses of the political signs in the yards.
One of the, and I don't compliment the newspaper very much, but one of the things that they do well, and I think newspapers across the country in these local races, they will give a survey and the candidates will answer those series of questions, and then they can put them all on a page side by side,
Right.
and people can see who matches up with their own belief system that way.
Right. And a lot of times, I've been both endorsed and been the other candidate endorsed in my election. So I don't know the newspaper, the endorsements in the editorial page, but they a lot of times do list some of the views of a person in the editorial page or their editorial. And so, and then this isn't the best way, I don't think, but you can also read the people letters the editor will write in support. And at least you can, if they're telling you the
Mhm.
truth, then you can see something you may be interested in through that. Those are all ways to gather information. And short of that, uh, call them up. If you have a candidate you're wondering about, give them a phone call. I mean, I didn't have that very often. And I'm hoping, I know some of these candidates are door to door campaigners.
Mhm.
That's the way I always worked it. When the two times I've been contested, I had one race where I was uncontested, but went door to door. And that's if you're planning on voting and they knock on your door, ask them some questions. Don't just take their brochure and say thank you. Ask some pertinent questions that are important to you, and that's the way you might be able to find out that candidate. At least that particular candidate. I don't think all candidates have the time to go door to door or the inclination, or maybe even physically can go door to door, because that could be a problem. But uh, that's another way to find out information about the candidates. Because going in there and just voting on somebody's name probably isn't the best. It sometimes can work. I know my family had been in the legislature. My uncle had been in the legislature for years and Speaker of the House and things. And I'm pretty sure I got a few votes because people remembered my uncle's name, and then my parents seemed to know everybody, and that certainly helped me as well in my elections. That oh, that's Corny's boy or that's Donna's boy, and so they would vote for you for that reason, just for the fact that they were level-headed and good solid citizens. So they assumed I'd catch a little bit that through genetics and environment of growing up in that household. So
Yeah, you don't fall too far from the tree.
Right.
9:16. We want to point out Greg Lanting's in studio with us for a few more minutes from the Twin Falls City Council. 54, up from about low 40s actually in some spots earlier this morning. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. The other thing that surprised me when Rebecca was here a couple of weeks ago, she was talking with the office staff before she came in studio, and they were just stunned by how easy it is to run when it comes to filing and how many signatures you need. It's not made difficult. In fact, it's actually quite simple.
Right. You can actually go without any signatures and pay a certain amount of money. I think it's five, isn't it? Five
Yeah,
signatures,
5
something like that.
signatures.
I think I always tried to turn in 20 just to make sure I didn't mistakenly put somebody on there that wasn't a registered voter. But you have to have 5 registered voters is all it takes to be able to run for office. Regrettably, we're talking about this right after the filing period has closed because I think it closed last Friday. But so no new candidates, although somebody could choose to run as a write-in candidate at this point, which is certainly an uphill battle, of course. But to try to win an election without your name being on there. The turnout is pretty light typically in city elections, and that's the frustrating thing we talked about
Mhm.
earlier. We are the closest to you, so get out and vote to have the person in the office that you want, and hopefully we get a little there. And we talked off air a minute ago, looking at the registration. The way I always did it, so whenever I was running, was I would get a sheet from the county assessors. Or it's like probably not the assessors. It's probably the Blastock's office, but they will tell you who voted in the last city election.
Mhm.
Every last person in their address, and you can take that and go around knock on those doors because those people are likely to vote again. The average age is way up there. I would be willing to bet in city elections it's somewhere in the 60s for the average age of people that maybe those are the people that can take the time to go vote in on an election doesn't have a president on it or a governor or some major issue. I remember we had the Luna law issues that drove a lot of people to the polls because they were very interested in that subject. So it doesn't have that glamorous feel, but it's also critically important that you get the right people in office.
Yeah, and I think that for a lot of us, when you have to get a little older to realize how important it is. But if you're a young person and you've already bought a home in the city, you really should think about getting out there and taking part in an election on the local level.
Right. We the city council decides at least the city portion what your taxes are going to be. That we decide what your water rates are going to be, your sewer rates, your garbage rates. All those things are things we vote on as part of the budget. And then what amenities, what services is the city providing? Are they providing your children, if you're especially if you're a younger voter, are they providing you with the children with the recreation opportunities you would like them to have? And so that's why this becomes important. Every part of your life, we have some impact on it at some point. So it's an important election to go vote in.
Well, we'll be seeing more of you more frequently because some of your colleagues, because of the impact of the race, they're going to be off the air for a while, unless, of course, their opponents come in. But we will talk to you again then sometime in the next few weeks.
There's only I think it's down to 3 that can come talk.
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure about Sean. Sean, since is unopposed, once he clears the write-in candidate date, he might be able to come in as well.